Hi, this is me, Sanjana. Today is day 14 of me trying to improve by reading to improve my enunciation. Today we're starting a new topic called fractal systems. We talk about systems today. So I'm gonna start continuing. Fractal systems, resolving contradiction and loops at scale. Definition of a fractal in this framework. A fractal in this context is self-replicating, self-sustaining governing structure. This is by Yeshwani. A fractal in this context is self-replicating, self-sustaining governing structure that dictates how reality organizes itself at a given level. It is not simply a pattern, it is a structural law that continuously generates the same outcomes unless deliberately altered. A fractal must be met with four conditions to be considered structurally valid. First, it does not require conscious effort to sustain. Once authored, it holds without needing reinforcement. 2. It remains intact under external pressure. If the reality contradicts, the fractal does not collapse. It operates independently of external validation. It is not reliant on external permission to function. 4. It is self expanding. A true fractal generates further stability rather than requiring maintenance. Because fractals are self sustaining structural imprints, they form the foundation of all reality structuring. A person's identity, relationship, financial trajectory, and perception of what is possible are all governed by the fractals they hold. Some fractals are self authored, while others are inherited or conditioned. Regardless of the origin, once a fractal is in place, it defines experience until it deliberately restructured or collapsed. Definition of a metafractal. A metafractal is a higher order governing structure that integrates multiple fractals into a singular coherent system. It is not a compromise between two conflicting fractals, but a synthesis that resolves that contradiction entirely. Metafractals, resolving structural contradictions into unified systems. So, this visualization shows how conflicting fractals A and B are restructured into higher order metafractals, eliminating contradictions. Fractal A directive A1, A2, A3. Fractal A B directive 2, B1, B2, B3. A1 and B2 have a contradiction, they merge into a metafractal. So metafractals emerge when two or more governing structures appears to be in position but can be restructured into a unified non-contradictory directive. This does not mean both fractals simply coexist, it means they are reorganized into a framework where contradiction no longer exists. A fractal contradiction occurs when two governing laws attempt to hold the same space in incompatible ways. Instead of choosing one over the other, a metafractal is authored that allows both of them to be true in non-oppositional framework. For example, a person may hold the fractals I thrive in deep, stable relationships. I require personal autonomy. At first glance, they may seem to be in direct conflict. If approached with a lower level of structuring, the person will feel forced to oscillate between commitment and independence, unable to hold both at once. A metafractal would restructure this into my deepest relationships exist in the state of freedom and expansion. This does not compromise between the two fractals. It removes the contradiction entirely by defining a governing structure in which both the directives are inherently aligned. Metafractals all resolve contradictions at scale, preventing oscillation and fragmentation. They allow for seamless integration of multiple governing directives, ensuring that a system remains fully aligned without internal proposition. Introduction. Singular fractals, even when correctly structured, do not generate a complex integrated reality. At first glance, one might assume that the authoring stable fractals is sufficient to ensure a seamlessly and a harmonious experience. But many find that after eliminating recursion and setting up new governing imprints, something still feels incomplete. While these fractals hold steady, they fail to generate momentum. The systems feel stable, yet it lacks the interconnected flow that brings the full experience to life. Certain imprints may appear absolute on their own, but when isolated, they lack the ability to influence or reinforce one another meaningfully, leading to a fragmented reality. This occurs because fractals do not operate in isolation. They are components of a larger interdependent system. Without carefully structuring at systemic level, even the most stable fractals will fail to catalyze a fully aligned reality. A singular fractal governs one facet of experience, but without integration into a larger system, reality remains disjoint. Instead of forming an integrated whole, a person experiences a patchwork of disconnected directives, each operating independently, unable to coalesce, 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 into a unified field of expression. At best, this situation results in stagnation where individual fractals remain stable, yet no longer pattern yet no larger pattern emerges to facilitate organic growth. At worst, it leads to contradiction, different fractals vying for domination over the same space, producing conflicting directives that generate internal conflict, oscillation, or distortion. These contradictions don't necessarily cancel each other out, nor do they collapse automatically. Instead, they produce competing signals that manifest as instability and unpredictable fluctuations in experience. If multiple governing fractals are running at different levels of influence without integration, the result is often a state of perpetual oscillation, cycling between competing states rather than experiencing a singular stable trajectory. Fractals as interconnected systems. Fractals must be structured into a coherent system for reality to function seamlessly. The assumption that individual fractal alones are sufficient arises from the linear perspective, a belief that one shift, one belief, or one authored structure should be able to change the entire field of reality. However, fractal structuring is inherently systemic rather than linear, meaning each fractal must interlock with others within a stable, non competing framework for optimal function. When a system is structured correctly, no single fractal operates in isolation. Instead of isolation, imprints, the individual experiences a unified field where every aspect of reality is seamlessly interconnected. Financial fractals, relational fractals, identity based fractals, and external structuring mechanisms all function together without contradiction or interference. In such a system, there is no need for constant navigation. As long as every fractal is aligned at scale, reality self organizes with decisions, outcomes, and trajectories unfolding naturally without the need for conscious correction. When fractals are not deliberately integrated into a larger system, they either remain inert, failing to expand beyond their singular influence, or they interfere with each other, generating instability. The presence of unresolved contradictions within the system provides a smooth, predictable trajectory. A person will instead experience a reality shaped by whichever fractal is dominant at the given moment, resulting in oscillation, fragmentation, or inconsistent outcomes. These contradictions might not always manifest as direct conflicts. Some fractals may misalign across different levels of influence, creating indirect friction that only becomes apparent when viewed holistically. Others may appear to coexist but fail to reinforce one another, leading to stagnation instead of expansion. The need for systemic integration. Fractal systems represents the phase of structuring beyond isolated imprints. The goal is not to simply to author stable fractals, but to create an interconnected system where every layer of reality reinforces the next. This requires eliminating contradictions, resolving misalignments between fractal levels, and ensuring that all governing structures operate as a unified whole rather than independent directives. One such system is fully structured. Reality, Once such a system is fully structured, reality stabilizes at a scale, removing the need for a continuous intervention or course correction. Without this level of integration, even the most stable fractals remains fragmented, thus preventing full coherence within the system. Understanding how fractals exist within a hierarchy of influence and why contradictions arise between them is essential for systemic structuring. Clarity on how fractals interact at different levels is a necessary foundation for integration. The following section will explore the fractal hierarchy, identifying the distinct levels of influence and the roles each one plays in shaping reality. Fractals do not operate at a single level of reality structuring. Instead, they exist within the hierarchical system where different levels of fractals exert varying degrees of influence. This distinction is crucial. Attempting to shift a fractal at the wrong level will result in failure, oscillation, or distortion. The instability that many people experience is not necessarily due to a lack of authored fractals, but because their fractals are structured incoherently, either misaligned across levels or competing for dominance. While a singular fractal may appear structurally sound in isolation, if it contradicts a deeper governing law, it will not hold permanently. The reverse is equally true. A well authored fractal may exist, but if it lacks supporting structures at lower levels, it will fail to execute effectively. This is why many individuals believe they have changed something fundamentally, only to find themselves repeating the same cycles in slightly altered forms. They are not addressing the level where the true governing structure resides. Why misalignment between fractal levels causes systemic instability? When fractals are misaligned across levels, they create interference rather than coherence. The system fails to function when critical supporting structures are missing or when competing governing law exists within the same field. Misalignment can occur when a person works on a fractal at one level, affirmations or habits, without addressing the deeper, higher levels in the fractal hierarchy. Misalignment between primary and co-fractals. A primary fractal cannot hold if it contradicts a core fractal. This is the reason why changes in external circumstances such as financial flow cannot be sustained if a deeper identity based fractals remain unchanged. If a person works on a money mindset primary fractal that says money flows easily, but their core fractal is built around scarcity and struggle, I am unworthy of abundance or money is hard to get, no lasting stability will emerge. The co-fractal will always override the attempted shift at the primary level, meaning that fluctuations or brief shifts will occur, but no long-term transformation will take place. Example: Sarah Sarah attempts to shift her beliefs about money and use affirmations to bring in abundance. However, her deep seated co-fractal around unworthiness and scarcity causes her to subconsciously sabotage her own financial stability, even when her outward intentions align with the abundance. Misalignment between core and secondary operational fractals. A core fractal cannot fully execute or create lasting change if the secondary and operational fractals do not support it. This is why people sometimes feel like they have made a fundamental shift in their identity but see no tangible changes in their external world. Core fractals govern our belief systems and perceptions, but these will not translate into action unless secondary fractals, mechanisms, and strategies and operational fractals, micro level behaviors align. Without proper integration, the core fractal will remain unexpressed and the person's reality will not shift. Example: John works to recalibrate his core fractal around self worth, believing that he is now deserving of love and success. However, if his secondary fractal, such as how he seeks love or works in his career, and operational factors like his daily actions and habits do not reflect this new belief, he may still find himself in situations that contradict his core perception. For instance, he might choose relationships that reinforce his sense of unworthiness, or he may procrastinate in taking core actions towards career advancements. Misalignments at operational level. An operational fractal cannot create systemic, long lasting change on its own. Micro level shifts in habits, routines, and behaviors might create short term improvements, but these will never override primary or core fractals. Changing surface level behaviors is often ineffective because they do not address the deep structural misalignments in identity or perception. Example: Sarah might decide to cut back on spending or implement a new daily habit of saving money, operational fractal, but if her core fractals still hold deep beliefs about scarcity or unworthiness, these micro level changes will fail to generate sustainable transformation. She may find that her efforts to save money are undermined by subconscious beliefs or automatic behaviors that go against her new financial habits. So, the keywords here are coherent. We have to be coherent. The way I speak also must be coherent. And I mean, I've learned all of this, but I still like a refreshing memory. And tomorrow we're gonna read fractal hierarchy, which is a very interesting topic. Thanks for listening till the end, and I hope you guys enjoy my videos because I enjoy making them, especially the challenges, the 15 minutes of reading. Although it's just my mom, it might be my children one day and my grandchildren, because this is information that I'm passing. This is the kind of information I really want to pass down to my generations, and I want them to learn so that they can implement them in their lives, because we evolve. Thank you.